Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another Raw review. Alright, well, it didn't take too long. Sami Zayn got destroyed. 9 days as champion, and out of nowhere, CM Punk comes and shows up. I mean, I know it's in his hometown of Chicago and everything, but he shows up and he beats Sami Zayn for the undisputed title. And it's crazy because they had the title match on Raw when it's a SmackDown championship. So I guess we're gonna get to see SummerSlam is gonna be Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. So it's gonna be back to the same old and everything, you know? I mean, the WWE is just I don't know. It's just going crazy with this stuff. I mean, Sami Zayn, he's done. I know on SmackDown, we're going to hear from Sami Zayn. He's going to say he wasn't ready, he wasn't prepared, and everything like that. It was unfair to him, and everything. I know it's coming. It's going to happen and stuff. So we're going to be back on that Sami Zayn complaint train. And the people were booing Sami too. I mean, they were letting him have it. You know, um, tonight and stuff. But CM Punk is the new undisputed champion. Well, we'll see what happens with that because it's going to be crazy. Here we go. Here we go. Why hasn't the WWE put any new people up front, you know, um, for these titles? It's just the same old people that we see every week, and the championships really only change between a couple of people and stuff. And just anybody can just come and get a title shot as long as you're over the age of 40. It's crazy. But anyway, let's get into tonight's show. And it starts off with, Sami Zayn actually telling, Cody Rhodes that he will defeat him tonight, and then all of a sudden Gunther comes out, he attacks Cody and everything, beats Cody up a little bit, and then Gunther tells Sami Zayn that, you know, Cody is not his problem, that Gunther's going to be his problem because Gunther's going to be a thorn in the side and everything. And then he tells Sami that, he tells Sami that he's a joke of a champion. It was a mistake that they put the title on him and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Gunther slams Cody's head in the car door and everything. So Cody's out, bleeding from the ear, and stuff like that. And then to the ring, we have Seth Rollins. He's saying his business is to own Roman Reigns and stuff, and his business is to get back a title that he never lost. And see, when you have people say that about getting a title that they never lost, it doesn't matter if you're in a triple threat match and stuff, and you're the champion. Hey, the odds of you winning that thing again is slim and stuff. And if you get pinned to the other, well, if another person gets pinned and you didn't and stuff, you still lost the title and stuff. You lost it. If you don't have it, you're not the champion. You lost the title. So how's it a title that you never lost when you're not the champion? That's just crazy. Him and Rhea, everybody's starting to say it now, you know, and it's crazy. It's driving. It's just it's sad and stuff. And it says he's not there because I mean he's saying that Roman is not there tonight, because the check that the check wasn't big enough for Roman to show up, saying Roman was chosen as a golden child, and he says it didn't fit right with him, you know. And then he goes on to saying that when he was a little boy, all he wanted to do is what is actually basically what he does now, you know. And he said that he put a lot of hard work in and everything. And then he went on to saying that, Roman saying that he needs to, that needs to beat him. But then he says that, to prove him, for Roman to prove himself that, he's not a fraud. And then he says that he also needs to beat Roman and stuff to put all that, aside and everything. And all as he was getting ready to talk again, then LA Knight comes out, saying that, Seth and Roman, they keep coming out saying the same thing over and over, and it's boring and stuff, and then LA says, tells Seth that he knows he's an Iron Man, he's good at what he does and everything. And then he said that he'll never catch Seth Rollins as far as championships are concerned, you know. Oh man, it's just crazy. And then he tells Seth, when business started to pick up and everything, he said who was, at the top and stuff. Then he goes on to say it wasn't Seth. Then he says it wasn't Roman. Then gives Cody, a little praise, giving Cody, some props or whatever the case may be. And then says, you know, Luca was, storming through, you know, the WWE, you know, like a force no one's seen. And then he says, with everybody, hearing him, and then everybody over the place and everything stuff because it was him. And he's like, everybody was saying, LA Knight and stuff. Then he goes on to saying that, as he was coming along, you know, um, the bloodline, cut him off and stuff and beat him down because the blood man back then a few years ago, he was catching hell with the bloodline. And then after the bloodline, then he says division, division cut him off and everything, because it was always a number game with him and stuff. He really didn't like the bloodline. He got along with Jimmy, but man, then the Vision came along, and then that was a problem for him and stuff like that. And then he goes on and says, even with the Vision and the Bloodline, he says they can't even stop him. You know, they're not going to be able to stop him because he will rise. And then Seth tells LA Knight that he doesn't like him and stuff like that. He said he doesn't like him, but he does respect him. And he's going to beat Roman Reigns, and at SummerSlam and stuff. And when he beats Roman Reigns to get back a title that he never lost, there it is again. Then he'll give LA Knight, a shot, at the title and everything, and he'll be the first one that he puts in the dirt. We'll see. And then as that's going off, LA Knight is just talking, 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 and then Jimmy Uso climbs in the ring behind him and puts one to LA's face. And then he tells LA Knight to keep his family out of his mouth and stuff. And then we get back, you got Nick Aldis, Adam Pearce, and Gunther. They're back there arguing and stumbling around and stuff like that, arguing about what happened, what Gunther did to Cody Rhodes and stuff like that. And Nick Aldis tells Adam Pearce, that he's responsible, for what happened as far as Cody Rhodes because, at this time, um, Adam Pearce is the general manager for both SmackDown and Raw and stuff. So this did happen on his watch, but then we all know that Nick Aldis and Gunther got into it, a couple few weeks ago and stuff. And then the Vision, backstage with Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman is basically told Braun Breaker, that he failed in beating Seth Rollins, in the cage match that they had. And then he goes on and tells Austin Theory, that he couldn't even beat Joe Hendry. And then he tells both of them, when you go out there against, the Street Profits and everything, bring back something, that's worthy and stuff. And he said, if you don't, then don't come back at all and stuff because you won't be there for them. So I guess Paul is just is fed up with these guys, but you know how that goes and stuff. So it's just a lot of bull crap and everything. Then we get the match with Street Profit, in the Vision. The match is going on pretty good. I mean, it was pretty decent. It was hard hitting and stuff like that. Then you got Logan Paul. He brings out some brass knuckles, and then the referee catches him and stuff. And then as the referee is trying, grabs the brass knuckles, Logan Paul throws another pair in and stuff, but the pair that he throws in, Angelo Dawkins gets him, you know. And as Angelo Dawkins is about ready to hit Austin Theory, then Maxine Dupree out of nowhere comes in the ring and she low blows Angelo Dawkins, you know, and stuff. And then Austin Theory rolls Angelo Dawkins up and he pins him for the win. And they are now new tag team champions. So the Street Profits only held that tag team title for maybe a month and a half, if that's long. I mean, it's crazy. And maybe because, um, DST, you know, Bianca Belair, I mean, I know she's probably close to delivery, so that might be the reason why they lost, the tag title so quick. I don't know and stuff, but I'm sure we'll find out. Then we got Paul Heyman telling Division, after the match, that at least someone accomplished something. And then Braun Breaker and Austin Theory were looking at Paul Heyman, and he said he wasn't talking to them. He was talking about Maxine Dupree. And then they all get into their SUV and drive off. And then Otis and Sauer, they come out and stand and watch them drive away. And then we get the little segment with Liv Morgan, telling Raquel Rodriguez, that the Judgment Day will do anything, to make sure that Raquel Rodriguez beats Soul's Ruka for the IC title and stuff. And then we get another backstage with Jackie, talking to Penta, and then Dragon Lee comes out and everything, and then they start talking, and then Ethan Page, comes out with Rusev, and they start talking crap, and then all of a sudden, Chad Gable comes out and everything, so they're talking and everything because they're getting ready to have this tournament, well, not tournament, but matches against whoever's the last, basically the last person standing. I can't remember the name of the match. One comes in, if somebody gets beat, then they get out, somebody else comes in, and it's basically the last one there who wins and stuff will challenge Penta for the IC title and stuff. And then Ethan Page goes on and he tells Rusev that he's going to talk to Adam Pearce to get a match between Chad Gable and Dragon Lee and stuff. And then we get the match with So Ruka and Raquel Rodriguez. The match was going on. It was a little pretty sloppy. There were some things that So Ruka was getting ready to do, and she slipped off the rope on and everything. And Raquel, she was looking a little bit raggedy in the ring too and stuff. I mean, the spots were just crazy. A lot of missed everything. And I mean, for an IC title, it could have been at least a better match. But then Liv Morgan comes out, to interfere and stuff, and with her with Roxanne Perez and stuff, they come out to interfere, and all of a sudden, Io Sky comes out and takes both of them out and everything, and then So Ruka hits the Soul Snatcher on Raquel Rodriguez, and she gets the 1, 2, 3 for the pin and win. And then Paul Heyman comes out again, this time he's talking about Oberfemi and stuff. And he's saying that Oberfemi comes out, like he owns the place and stuff and everything. He's a beast and stuff. And then he says that until he met Brock Lesnar. And they said Ober is going to suffer, in Hell in the Cell, saying that he opened up, he opened up the beast and everything. He actually said that Ober inspired the beast, Brock Lesnar. And then he goes on and said that Ober, um, complimented, the beast, then he made the beast emerge. And then he's like, Brock Lesnar is going to destroy Oberfemi, in Hell in the Cell. Basically, he's going to just destroy him because, Brock Lesnar, I mean, even though the Undertaker is the one that invented or came out with Hell in a Cell, Brock Lesnar's beat, you know, the Undertaker twice in Hell in a Cell and everything. I mean, he's no he's I mean, Brock Lesnar has not lost a Hell in a Cell, so Ober's got his hands full, and I think this should be a very, 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 very good match and stuff. I mean, it's gonna come down to, whoever wins this match, then it's gonna, it should end the feud, and I believe Ober's gonna win this, which will actually retire out Brock Lesnar, but it's gonna be one heck of a fight, you know. Um, yeah, it's gonna be one heck of a fight, and then Ober goes on and he's, telling Paul Heyman it doesn't matter that he beat the Undertaker and Randy Guitar or anything like that because neither one of them are him, Ober Femi. Telling Paul, he's here because he's telling Paul that Paul is there because he's scared and stuff, and that Brock isn't there and stuff, or Brock showed up, last week when he did what he did to Overfemi and F5 them and stuff like that. He said that Brock is he got to Brock and everything, and now Brock is kind of have a little fear, in him now because that since he did ambush over last week, you know, um, his words, got to him. Then he said that he's going to beat Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam in front of his friends, his family, in front of his wife and his kids and stuff, you know, um, saying that, he learned one thing, saying that he learned one thing, you have to walk through hell to get to heaven. Then he tells Paul to tell Brock he will see him in hell. This is going to be a good one, I'm telling you. Then Kathy, you get a backstage with Jackie again with Sami Zayn, and Kathy talking to Sami, about what happened to Cody and everything. And she's telling that Cody is not going to be able to have the match because it's not cleared, through the medics and stuff and everything. Because Gunther kind of took him out pretty badly. And then Sami says, he won't put up the title and everything, because Cody got hurt and stuff like that. But then Adam Pearce comes out and stuff, and then Adam Pearce tells Sammy that he will be defending, the title tonight, in the main event. And so Sammy's looking at him like kind of crazy, he's not wanting to defend that title and stuff. And then we get the match with Chad Gable and Dragon Lee versus Ethan Page and Rusev. The match, the match went okay and stuff. I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was all right and stuff, it ended up with Rusev putting the accolade on Dragon Lee, and then Dragon Lee, tapped out and stuff like that. So Ethan Page and Rusev, they win the match and stuff, but then Rusev wouldn't let go of the accolade on Dragon Lee and stuff. And then Chad Gable, he tried to get Rusev, to relinquish, because he jumped Rusev, and then Ethan Page hit Chad Gable, and then Chad Gable he gets put into the accolade and stuff, and so he's caught in there, and then all of a sudden here comes Joe Hendry. He comes out, he takes out both Ethan Page and Rusev, but then again the numbers catch up with him, and then Joe Hendry ends up in the accolade and stuff. Oh man, it's just crazy, man. So, all right, so then we got Rusev and Ethan Page winning that match. And then we got Jimmy leaving the arena and Jackie catching up with him, asking him about, what happened, with LA Knight and everything, and why he kicked him, and stuff like that. And then Jimmy says it's time for him to step up, that he's going to SmackDown and he's going to confront Solo Sikoa on what happened last week and stuff. And then LA Knight, he's walking out. Looks like he's going to try to say or do something to Jimmy, and then all of a sudden, Jacob Fatu cuts him off and everything and lays him down and stuff. So you had that. And then we get a little film promo about Bailey talking about Lyra Valkyria, and her standing with Lyra Valkyria as far as them going through, WrestleMania and all the tag matches and the opportunity they had with tag team titles and stuff, saying that she wanted to, let Lyra have watch her grow into a good career and stuff like that. And then Lyra turns her back on her and everything. And she tells Lyra, next week, meet her, on Raw and stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. Then you got Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. They're backstage, and Nick is telling Adam Pearce that he found someone, to face Sami Zayn, and stuff for the main event and stuff. And he said that that person is there in the building and stuff. And then we go to JD McDonough, and Don Mysterio. They're talking about, you know, um, well, actually, JD is talking about facing Danhausen at Saturday Night Main Event and stuff, and how he's going to beat him and stuff like that, because he still owes them money and everything, because the money that he took out, brought last week, it was an explosive device in there and stuff. So they got powder sprayed and stuff. But anyway, you get the match, the main event, Sami Zayn, and we finally all know that it was CM Punk. So the match went on. It was a hell of a match, though. It was a very, very good match and stuff. I mean, when you get Sami Zayn, he hits CM Punk with the GTS and everything, and then the CM Punk he kicks out, and then we get Sami Zayn hitting CM Punk again with the GTS and the Blue Thunder Bomb, and CM Punk kicks out, and then we get CM Punk hitting Sami Zayn with a back exploder and then hits him with a Haluna kick, and then Sami Zayn he kicks out and stuff, and the match goes on and goes on and goes on, and then CM Punk catches Sami Zayn again and stuff, hits him with a Haluna kick, puts him in the GTS, and 1, 2, 3, CM Punk is the new undisputed champion. So with that, I mean, it was crazy. I don't know with WWE and Paul Levesque, Triple H. I don't know what's going on with this, but they really took a crap on Sami Zayn and stuff. 9 days as champion. Wow. On his first defense, he loses and stuff. So all that's going to do, like I said, is going to set up CM Punk and Cody Rhodes SummerSlam for the undisputed title, and Cody will probably win it back. It's crazy, but anyway, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling, if you agree or disagree. And I say, thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.